Hello and welcome back, guys. We're now starting a new story, Revenge, by King Azriel. You can find author's profile link in the description. Let's begin. A bitter truth. Izuku Midoriya sat on his bed, confusion swirling in his mind. His emerald eyes were fixed on the illuminated screen of his phone, which he held tightly in his right hand, while his left gripped the sheets. He couldn't understand why Ochako Uraraka, his first friend and girlfriend, was acting so strangely. Their once lively conversations had dwindled to short, half-hearted messages, leaving him feeling lost and worried. Ochako was kind, beautiful, and always made time for him. Their relationship had felt like a dream, but now it seemed like a nightmare. He scrolled through their texts, feeling a knot tighten in his stomach. She's realizing just how much of a loser you are. The thought haunted him. Closing his eyes, he clenched his fist in frustration. He hated doubting Ochako, but her behavior around the other boys had been troubling. He recalled her laughter and playful touches, which felt too NTMT. No. She wouldn't cheat on me, would she? The idea was unbearable. With a frustrated yell, Izuku stood up, determined to clear his mind. His gaze fell on his workout bag, and he decided that hitting the gym would help. He placed his phone on the desk and began to change, revealing his toned physique. His hard work had paid off, and he felt stronger than ever. After gathering his essentials, he slung the bag over his shoulder and left his dorm room. As he descended the stairs, he glanced into the common room, where he noticed that Ochako was absent, along with most of the boys. His classmates were engaged in their own activities, but he couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. He thought about asking if anyone had seen Ochako but hesitated. Instead, he quickened his pace toward the door. Momo Yaoyorozu noticed him and called out, causing him to pause. "Midoriya?" she asked, her gaze shifting to him. He hesitated, momentarily distracted by her presence. "Oh, I'm just headed to the gym. I shouldn't be gone for more than a few hours." "Very well," Momo replied, her expression turning slightly troubled. "If you see Todoroki, could you tell him we need to talk?" "Yeah, sure thing," Izuku said with a smile, nodding before he opened the door and stepped outside. The cold air hit him, but he didn't shiver. Taking a deep breath, he began walking toward the gym, listening to the rustling trees around him. His fingers brushed against his phone in his pocket, and he felt a mix of trepidation and hope. Should he call Ochako? Part of him wanted to reach out, while another part hesitated. As he walked, the distance to the gym felt longer than usual. Finally, he took out his phone, pressed call on Ochako's name, and put it to his ear. Each ring made his heart race. "Please, just pick up the phone." "Ochako," he said when she finally answered. Hey Izuku. Izuku glanced at his phone, his breath catching slightly. Why did she sound like that? The tone of her voice lingered in his mind, making his chest tighten and his stomach churn. "Oh Ochako, are you okay?" "Why yeah. Oh Ochako." Izuku exclaimed, dropping his bag. Something was definitely wrong, there was no reason for her to make those noises otherwise. "I'm okay, Izuku. I stubbed my toe." I was just surprised. Doubt crept into Izuku's mind. None of what he heard sounded like pain, rather, it seemed almost familiar. He and Ochako had shared moments of closeness before, and he recognized the sound of her voice when she was pleased. No, that can't be. She must have been too embarrassed to say it out loud, and Izuku understood that feeling. A shaky smile attempted to form on his face but faltered each time. Oh, okay, well as long as you're fine." "Why yeah, I'm MMF." A long pause followed, and all Izuku could hear were muffled noises. I have to go." "Well, okay, bye, I'll love." Izuku lowered the phone from his ear, the call ending with a series of beeps. He took a deep breath, looking up at the sky, trying to process what had just happened. Ochako's voice echoed in his mind. Shoving his phone back into his pocket, Izuku bent down to grab his workout bag. He just needed to get to the gym, that was the only thing he could think of to distract himself. It didn't take long to reach the gym, and stepping inside brought a sense of peace to his mind. The gym was empty, save for himself. Moving toward the bench press, he set his bag down and began loading weights onto the bar, adjusting it to 250 pounds. Normally, he would have added more weight, but without a spotter, he opted for a lighter load. Lying on the bench, he lifted the bar and began his reps, letting his mind race. Thoughts of his classmates' disappearances and Ochako's cold shoulder swirled in his head. The bar felt heavier, just like the weight of his confusion about what was happening. He hated this confusion and doubt. He wanted it all to go away, but no matter how much he lifted, ran, or hit the punching bag, those emotions didn't fade. Hours passed, and the sun dipped lower in the sky. He didn't want to stop, he didn't want to face the reality of tomorrow. Confronting Ochako? He dreaded it. But he knew reality would catch up to him eventually, and the gym lights shutting off confirmed that fact. He had spent more time in the gym than he realized. Covered in sweat, Izuku activated full cowling, the lightning illuminating his surroundings. He packed his bag and left the gym, heading back to the dorms. The night breeze cooled his heated body, but he silently dreaded the scolding he was bound to receive from Aizawa. It took him about 10 minutes to reach the dorm, and as expected, Aizawa was waiting for him at the door. "Midoriya, you're late. Mind explaining why?" Izuku held up his workout bag and replied honestly, "Sorry, sensei, I lost track of time while I was working out." Aizawa nodded, "I expected as much. Alright, go ahead, Midoriya. Be grateful that Yaoyorozu told me where you were." "Thank you, sensei." Moving past his teacher, he entered the Heights Alliance, finding the common room empty. It was already 10 p.m., and his classmates had class tomorrow. With that in mind, he quickly started his night routine. After dropping off his workout bag and phone in his room, he grabbed a towel and headed to the showers. He didn't mind sleeping covered in sweat, but that was only in situations that called for it. Arriving at the showers, he collected his necessities and turned on the water, waiting for it to heat up. Luckily, UA spared no expense on the dorms, and the water quickly reached a comfortable temperature. Stepping under the water, he felt genuinely relaxed. The streams of water soothed his sore muscles, and he took a moment to enjoy the feeling. After a good half hour of washing himself and his hair, he finally turned off the shower. Steam rose from his skin as he dried off, wrapping a towel around his waist. Not expecting anyone to be awake at this hour, he opened the door and bumped into someone, causing them to fall to the ground. "Oh no! I'm sorry," he exclaimed. Looking down, he recognized Jirou. "Oh, Jirou, sorry, I didn't expect anyone to be around." He held his towel with one hand and extended the other to help her up. Jirou still hadn't noticed the hand Izuku had extended toward her. Her face was lit up in an explosive blush as she took in Izuku's physique and his serious expression. Swallowing the lump in her throat, she found herself staring at him, feeling flustered. Shaking her head, Kyoka grabbed Izuku's hand, noticing his strong grip immediately. Internally, she was overwhelmed, trying to clear the blush from her cheeks. "Midoriya, could you cover up before you apologize?" she said, turning her head away and closing her eyes. Recalling his current state of dress, Izuku sheepishly scratched the back of his head. "Yeah, sorry about that. I wasn't really expecting anyone to be up at this time, so I don't really have something I can throw on." "Gee God, you're a mess," Kyoka said, peeking at him from the corner of her eye, her arms crossed over her chest. "Hee, yeah." Izuku chuckled, but then he fell silent, gripping his hair with a look of mild distress, which Kyoka noticed. "Something wrong, Midoriya?" Izuku grimaced, feeling a knot in his stomach. "No, yeah, I'm fine." He paused and let go of his hair. Alright, well I should head to bed. Good night, Jirou. Yeah, good night, Mophead. As Izuku walked to his dorm room, he felt increasingly uneasy. Once inside, he changed into his pajamas, his mind and body exhausted. Just as he was about to rest, the buzzing of his phone caught his attention. He picked it up and saw a text from Bakugo. Bakugo, he thought, surprised that the boy, who had never been friendly towards him, was reaching out. The message contained several videos, all featuring a still black image. Curiously, he clicked on the most recent one. As he did, Izuku froze, his eyes widening in shock. In the video, Ochako was in a compromising situation, her face flushed and her demeanor suggestive. She was surrounded by classmates, all seemingly enjoying the scene. Izuku's heart sank as he watched, feeling a mix of disbelief and betrayal. The laughter and teasing from the others echoed in his mind, and he felt tears welling up in his eyes. As he continued to watch, he realized that Ochako showed no remorse for her actions. Instead, she seemed to be enjoying the attention. Dropping his phone to the ground, Izuku buried his face in his hands, tears streaming down his cheeks. Everything began to make sense: the cold shoulder, the excuses, the disappearances. Clenching his fists, he felt his face grow hot with anger and betrayal. He had sacrificed so much for his friends, and this was how he was repaid. Betrayed by those he trusted. Izuku stood up, his emotions boiling over. He drove his fist forward, crashing it into his closet door, splintering the wood effortlessly. His breathing became ragged as he grappled with the overwhelming feelings of sadness and rage. His thoughts raced, and he glanced at his desk, where he had notebooks detailing his classmates' quirks. A plan began to form in his mind, fueled by the desire for retribution. He could use this knowledge to strike back, to show them the consequences of their betrayal. No. What good would that do? Laying on his bed, Izuku turned his phone off, cutting off the sound of Ochako's voice. Breaking bones wasn't enough, that pain would only be temporary. He couldn't harm them either. Glaring at the ceiling above him, he mulled over his choices. Normally, he would have chastised himself for thinking of revenge, but now. They deserved to feel pain, to endure the same level of distress he had just experienced. All night, he let these thoughts fester. Even when he eventually fell asleep, all he could dream of was the perfect plan for revenge. The morning quickly came, and waking from his slumber, Izuku sat at the edge of his bed. His mind was still filled with anger. Izuku. A knocking sounded at his door, and Izuku's rage grew tenfold hearing the voice on the other side. His stomach turned as he swallowed hard, trying to suppress his feelings. Opening his bedroom door, he saw her. Ochako smiled brightly at him as if nothing was wrong. What? He didn't hide the irritation in his voice, though Ochako seemed oblivious, either not caring or not picking up on it. What do you mean, what? We have class, come on. Uraraka smiled again, her eyes closed, not noticing Izuku's discomfort. Her breath was unpleasant, and he turned his head away. I'm not feeling well. Tell Aizawa I won't be going to class. Oh, are you okay? Seeing her feigned concern, Izuku imagined a different scenario. I'm fine, just tell Aizawa-sensei. Without waiting for a response, he slammed the door in Uraraka's face. He needed a few days. He was smart enough to know that if he was that angry just hearing her voice, he could only imagine how he would react seeing the others. The classes weren't a concern, he had the grades that permitted his absence for a few days, and in the worst-case scenario, he could ask Yaoyorozu for the class materials. Now that he had time, he continued to harbor his anger. He replayed the videos he had received, listening closely to every word, every voice he heard. He wrote down names and noted their insults. He was determined to get his revenge, and after 3 days of self-imposed solitude, he finally figured out exactly how he was going to accomplish this. Izuku stood in front of a single door, his eyes focused forward and his fist hovering over the wooden exterior. He knew what he was about to do was a long shot, and it might even backfire, but he couldn't help it. Knocking loudly for the person inside to hear, Izuku waited for a minute until the door creaked open. Rubbing her eyes, Kyoka yawned, her gaze landing on Izuku. "Midoriya?" she asked, stretching slightly. Izuku adjusted himself nervously as he looked at her. Clearing his throat, he spoke in a hushed yet serious tone, "Jirou, can I come inside? I really need to talk to you, it's important." Kyoka leaned on her door frame, still half asleep. "Right now? Can't this wait until tomorrow?" Izuku gently took Kyoka's hand and looked into her eyes. "Please." The more he looked at her, the more his motivation grew. Getting closer, he pleaded again, still holding her hand, "This can't wait." Kyoka felt a blush rise at the contact as she noticed Izuku's serious demeanor. With her free hand, she pushed open her door wider. "All right. Come on in, but let's make this quick." She moved to her bed, watching as Izuku entered and closed the door behind him. "Thank you, Jirou." A small grin stretched across Izuku's lips as he walked toward her. "This is something that you have to see." Kyoka watched as Izuku stepped into her room, her heart racing as he moved closer. She had a whirlwind of questions. What was so important? Why was he here now? Her anxiousness began to show. He always had this effect on her. Shaking her head internally, she focused on what was in front of her. "So. What's this about, Midoriya? I kind of take my sleep seriously, and if it's not important, I might get annoyed." She shot him a playful glare, though there was a hint of annoyance from her experiences with Kaminari keeping her up at night. She expected a reaction but was met with a serious expression from Izuku. "Trust me, that's not something I would do." Looking at the empty space near her, he asked, "Do you mind if I sit?" Shaking her head, Kyoka quickly scooted to the side as Izuku took a seat, their shoulders nearly touching. She didn't mind the closeness, it was comforting. "All right, so what is this emergency?" Izuku took a deep breath, his mouth opening before he reached for Kyoka's hand. Confused, she grasped his hand tightly. "Jirou. Recently I found out about something. Something that cannot leave this room, not until the time is right." Raising an eyebrow, Jirou grabbed Izuku's hand tighter. "Midoriya, what's going on?" The seriousness in her voice revealed her genuine concern. I. Sighing, Izuku looked up at the ceiling. "I don't know if you noticed, but recently Ochako and I have been distant. I'm sure you've experienced the same issue with Kaminari." Kyoka paused, unable to refute Izuku's assertion. It was true, Kaminari had become distant lately, especially after that night. She frowned, bitterly recalling how Kaminari had reacted when she didn't give in to his request. "What are you trying to say?" "Jirou, Kaminari is cheating on you." Kyoka looked deep into Izuku's emerald eyes before she raised her hand and slapped him across the face. "What are you saying, Midoriya? He wouldn't do that. How dare you?" Kyoka stood up, her anger boiling over. The fear and anxiety building in her heart intensified as she looked at Izuku again. Her insecurities flooded her mind. One of her greatest fears was being realized at that moment, and having it shoved in her face caused her to explode. She knew she wasn't the prettiest girl in her year, nor the most confident, but Kaminari had told her he didn't care. So why was Izuku's face so serious? His cheek stinging, Izuku ignored the pain and looked down. "I didn't want to believe it either. I didn't want to think someone I considered a friend would do such a thing, but it's true." "Shut up!" Kyoka yelled, slapping Izuku again. He took the hit without flinching. He knew this would happen. Digging into his pocket, Izuku pulled out his phone. "I really hoped I could spare you the pain of seeing this, but I have no other choice." He held out his phone, and Jirou, still furious, glared at him. "What is this?" Izuku remained silent, simply offering the phone to her. Kyoka took the phone and pressed play on the video already on the screen. She gasped in shock, her eyes brimming with tears as she watched her boyfriend betray her. "Why?" she cried, shaking her head. Kaminari was with someone else, and the worst part was that it was someone she considered a close friend. Looking up at Izuku, Kyoka saw his face filled with anger, sadness, and disappointment. How could she expect anything else? After all, her boyfriend was with someone else. Things only got worse as the video continued. "You're so much better than that stuck-up girl." Kaminari's voice echoed. "I was only with her to have some fun, but her attitude was such a turn-off." Kyoka covered her eyes, crying as she spoke through her sobs. So that's how it was. Her mental state began to crumble. She wanted to sink into the floor, realizing that someone like her would never find a guy who liked her. Just then, she felt a pair of arms wrap around her. Giving in, she buried her head into Izuku's chest, holding him tight. She didn't let go even as she felt herself being lifted. Eventually, Izuku sat back down on the bed, still holding Kyoka in his embrace. Sitting on his lap, she could only speak in fragments. I am ugly. My voice." A complicated expression crossed Izuku's face. His jaw clenched before he gently grabbed Kyoka's face, forcing her to look up at him while wiping the tears from her cheeks. "Jirou, listen to me." Kyoka looked into Izuku's eyes, subconsciously leaning into his gentle touch. "Kaminari is nothing but a fool. He can't see you the way I do. Your voice is the most beautiful thing I've heard. The way you sang at the school festival. I felt something for you since that moment. Your beauty isn't something someone like him can judge." Pausing, Izuku pulled Kyoka back into his chest. "I know the real you. Behind that tough exterior is a kind and gentle girl who cares. That makes you even more beautiful." Kyoka took in Izuku's words, her lips trembling with each compliment, her heart fluttering, though she still struggled to accept it. "Stop. You're just saying that to make me feel better. Kaminari is right. I'm just. You're one of the most beautiful girls I've ever seen. Listen to my heartbeat when I say this." Izuku placed her hand over his heart. "Everything I just said, I meant. I admire your personality, your bravery, your honesty. You could be one of the greatest heroes. Your singing is beautiful, and it saved a little girl's life. I think you are one of the most beautiful girls in the world, and if I had the chance, I would hold you in my arms each night and tell you how much I care." Izuku held Kyoka tighter, and she was stunned. Each word he said was the truth. Bringing her head up, Kyoka saw Izuku flash her a small, genuine smile. Despite the emotions swirling inside her, she couldn't fight the blush spreading across her face. Deciding to hide it, she buried her face back into his chest. "You're just saying all that sweet stuff." Still, she couldn't help the warmth in her chest. Izuku, the strongest person in her year, admired her. The same boy who had risked everything to save others. She felt validated, her singing had saved a little girl's life, and there it was, the feeling of overwhelming love in her heart. All of it was true. The unrequited feelings she held for Izuku came rushing back. Holding together in silence, Kyoka listened to Izuku's strong heartbeat. It was soothing, and she often found comfort in the sound of his chest. Even after discovering Kaminari's betrayal, her nerves calmed in his embrace. It hurt, but she felt an odd sense of happiness. "I'm sorry, Jirou," Izuku said, breaking the silence. What do you mean?" Kyoka asked, confused. Izuku sighed, "I'm sorry that I made you cry. This is all my fault. If I had talked to Uraraka before, maybe this could have been avoided. I'm sorry that my carelessness hurt you." Kyoka grabbed Izuku's face, "That's not your fault. If it wasn't for this, I would have been stuck with him for years. Uraraka and Kaminari betrayed both of us, so please don't blame yourself. This is their fault." Izuku chuckled, taking her hand in his. "Thank you." They stared into each other's eyes for what felt like minutes. Kyoka leaned forward, her eyes slowly closing as Izuku mirrored her actions. Their lips met softly, and Izuku deepened the kiss, holding Kyoka's face gently. They pulled away, both breathing heavily, and Kyoka gave him another peck on the lips. I didn't know you were such a good kisser." "I could say the same about you," Izuku replied, his heart racing. Suddenly, Kyoka remembered her position and felt a rush of surprise. Izuku noticed and gently scooted her off him. Sorry. I should leave now." He stood up, heading toward the door, his footsteps hesitant. "Wait." Izuku froze as Kyoka's hand rested on his lower back. With a blush, she reached over, feeling a surge of determination. "Why, you don't have to leave just yet. Plus, you know my boyfriend had a thing with your girlfriend. Why don't we return the favor?" Her heart raced as she palmed his side, wanting to draw him closer. "Jirou." Izuku turned to face her, taking her hands in his. "Are you sure?" Biting her lip, Kyoka nodded, her hand returning to his side. They leaned in, continuing their kiss from before, both lost in the moment. Izuku's hands found their way to Kyoka's waist, and she felt a thrill as their connection deepened. They shared the sweetness of their kisses, both savoring the moment. Pulling away, Izuku whispered, "I can't take it anymore." He removed his tank top, tossing it aside. Kyoka, inspired, reached for her own shirt but hesitated, insecurities creeping in. Just then, Izuku took her hands, and with a reassuring look, they both removed her top, revealing her to him. Kyoka blushed, her hands instinctively covering her face. Sorry, they aren't as," she was cut off by a sudden rush of sensation as Izuku's lips found hers again, igniting a spark within her. "Sorry for what?" "You're perfect," Izuku said with a smirk, making her blush deepen. Kyoka's heart raced as they continued to explore each other, lost in the warmth of their connection. She felt exhilarated, her worries fading away as they shared this NTMT moment together. "Kyoka, are you absolutely sure you want to do this?" Izuku asked, concern in his eyes. Kyoka playfully smacked the back of his head, "You idiot, asking me this now, after everything." She felt a rush of excitement, knowing they were both ready to take this step together. Just do it." Izuku nodded, leaning in to kiss her deeply once more, their hearts beating in sync as they embraced the new chapter of their relationship. "Izuku." Kyoka stuttered, part of her afraid but knowing she needed to say this now. "I've always loved you." Confessing out loud, Kyoka shook her head, the feelings she had long buried had been dug up. "I always thought you were sweet. A little nerdy but so heroic. That's what I loved about you." Izuku froze, not expecting a confession. "Kyoka. I liked you for a really long time, but when you got with Uraraka, I gave up. I was so jealous of her, but I didn't want to cause you trouble, so I kept quiet. I only settled for Kaminari because he was the only other boy who looked at me. But now." Kyoka leaned in and kissed Izuku before pulling away. "I can't ignore this feeling anymore." Izuku gritted his teeth, a tear appearing in his eye. It was just supposed to be simple. He had planned to confront Kyoka and get his revenge, but why did she have to say all that? He cared about Kyoka and truly meant the words he had spoken to her, but her confession had a profound effect on him. His heart thumped in his chest at the words he had heard so many times before. However, unlike all those times, he truly felt the admiration and love in her words, not the emptiness he usually felt when Uraraka had said them. Still, the turmoil in his heart quickly overshadowed the pang of guilt in his stomach. "Izuku. Please, I need you," Kyoka pleaded, pushing closer to him, her hands holding his tightly, showing just how much she truly loved and trusted him. Izuku took a moment before he gently responded to her feelings, wanting to be honest with her. Kyoka gave small gasps as they shared a moment of intimacy, feeling the warmth between them. He leaned down, intertwining his fingers with hers, whispering, "I love you too." Kyoka's eyes sparkled with emotion, and she nodded, ready to embrace this new chapter together. They stayed in that position, both passionately kissing each other, their hands never leaving their connection. "Okay. I'm ready, but please be gentle," she said shyly, her cheeks flushed. Izuku looked at her vulnerable expression, feeling a mix of admiration and tenderness. He knew he had to be careful and considerate. As they continued to explore their feelings, they shared a deep connection that brought them closer together. Their hearts raced as they navigated this new territory, both feeling the weight of their emotions and the excitement of being together. "Izuku!" Kyoka exclaimed, her voice filled with joy and surprise at the intensity of their connection. They shared laughter and sweet moments, their bond growing stronger with each passing second. After a while, they lay together, breathing heavily, feeling the warmth of each other's presence. Kyoka nestled her head against Izuku's chest, feeling safe and content. Suddenly, reality hit her. She buried her face into Izuku's chest and lightly punched his arm. "What? If I get PRGNT," she exclaimed, realizing the implications of their actions. Izuku, with a gentle smile, reassured her, "Well, it might not be so bad if we have a little copy of us running around." Kyoka blushed, hugging him tightly, her heart racing. "Mophead. Stop with all the sappy stuff." She felt a mix of embarrassment and joy, her heart fluttering as she whispered sweetly to him. Izuku felt a wave of fatigue wash over him as he brushed Kyoka's hair from her face and pulled the blankets over them. It was a moment of intimacy, and he could sense her breath hitch beneath the covers. She was his first, and the happiness that filled her heart made her smile as she cuddled closer to him. With one hand resting on her stomach, she thought about the future, wondering if it would be so bad to consider more. However, she quickly pushed the thought aside, reminding herself that she still needed to graduate. Despite this, she leaned in and placed a gentle kiss on Izuku's chest, whispering, "I love you." Izuku looked up at the ceiling, his right hand resting on Kyoka's lower back. "I love you too, Kyoka," he replied, feeling a mix of emotions. As he closed his eyes, he felt a sense of contentment, but a darker thought lingered in his mind. He recalled the betrayal he had faced from his friends just days before, and a resolve began to form. He knew he couldn't stop, he had a plan, and Kyoka was part of it. As he lay there, he felt Kyoka's soft snores and sighed, pulling her closer. He was torn between his feelings for her and the anger that simmered within him. Unbeknownst to Kyoka, he was already plotting his next move, but for now, he let sleep take over. The sunlight filtered through the slightly opened blinds, warming Izuku's face and stirring him awake. He slowly opened his emerald eyes, realizing where he was as he looked down at Kyoka, who was peacefully sleeping on his chest. Her cropped purple hair was tousled, and he felt a rush of affection as he admired her beauty. He couldn't help but smile at the memory of the previous night. Although he had spoken words of love with his own intentions in mind, he genuinely thought she was incredible. As he gazed at her, he felt a mix of admiration and confusion, pushing away any lingering thoughts that could distract him. Kyoka stirred, her eyelids fluttering open as she sat up, the blanket slipping off her. She stretched, and Izuku's heart raced at the sight. Suddenly, she noticed him and blushed, quickly covering herself with the blanket. "Ai Izuku," she exclaimed, embarrassment flooding her cheeks as she recalled the events of the night before. Izuku raised his hands in a gesture of reassurance, grabbing a pillow to cover himself. He watched her shyly peek from behind the blanket, her face growing redder with each glance. The silence in the room was palpable as they both processed what had happened. Finally, Kyoka broke the silence with a hesitant voice, "So. That wasn't a daydream then?" She searched his eyes for confirmation, her heart racing. The reality of their night together felt surreal, and she couldn't help but touch her own skin, feeling the remnants of their shared experience. Izuku's gaze softened as he took in her expression. He knew he needed to address what had happened. "Kyoka," he began, his voice steady despite the blush creeping onto his cheeks, last night. I hope you don't regret it. Kyoka was taken aback as she crawled across the bed to Izuku's left side. She placed her hand on his chest and leaned in to kiss his cheek. I don't regret it. I wasn't lying last night. I really have liked you for a long time, Izuku. She felt a mix of emotions. It was too late to turn back now. Izuku understood that if anyone else were in his position, they might feel joy instead of the sinking feeling in his heart. He had known that his plan would hurt the girls involved, but he hadn't anticipated how much it would affect him. As he looked at Kyoka, the pain overshadowed his anger towards Uraraka. He had spent days contemplating his next steps, and despite the hurt, he felt he couldn't back down now. Taking a deep breath, he reached for Kyoka's hand. Kyoka, I need to tell you something. She raised an eyebrow and scooted closer, nervously playing with her ear jack. What is it? Her worry was palpable, given the events of the previous night. Kyoka. I really do like you. Everything we shared yesterday was genuine. I truly care for you. Izuku paused, and he could see her worry deepen. But Kaminari wasn't the only person Uraraka has been with. What do you mean? Kyoka asked, her heart racing. The boys in our class, 1B, and even upperclassmen have been involved with Uraraka. I planned this out for days. I used your trust to get revenge. Kyoka's heart ached, and anger surged within her. She slapped Izuku across the face, leaving a red mark, but he remained still. You bstrd, she shouted. I thought you loved me. How could you do this? Her fists pounded against him in frustration. After several minutes of her anger, Kyoka's strength faded, and her cries turned into sobs, tears streaming down her cheeks. Hearing her distress made Izuku close his eyes tightly. Despite the pain from her hits, he gently held her. Don't touch me, she sobbed, trying to push him away. Kyoka. I do love you. I never wanted to hurt you. I was angry that my friends betrayed me. I wanted to give back some of that pain. I know I'm wrong, but last night made me realize my feelings for you are real. Kyoka cried, torn between her feelings. I don't care what you say. How can I trust you now? Before she could finish, Izuku kissed her deeply. At first, she resisted, but gradually her pushes weakened as she leaned into the kiss. It was a mix of emotions. Her heart told her that what they shared was genuine. After a few minutes, they pulled apart, and Izuku stroked Kyoka's back as she cuddled into his chest. The shame from their earlier actions faded, and they found comfort in each other. Kyoka contemplated her feelings, relief that Izuku loved her back, mixed with anger and sadness. Finally, after some time, she spoke. I don't like this. I hate it. But she thought about how she would feel if she discovered her friends had been with her boyfriend. I hate you for doing this. But I don't want to let you go. It was too embarrassing to admit, but Izuku understood. So. What now? He asked. I'm going to try and talk to the other girls. If they aren't willing, I won't pursue anything. He knew he had made mistakes, but he didn't want to be a villain. If you don't want to see me after this, I would understand. Dummy. Kyoka sniffled, wrapping her arms around his neck. I don't want that. So just hold me. Izuku complied, pulling her closer. He could still hear her soft sniffles. After a moment of silence, she chuckled lightly. Well, I guess your revenge won't be too hard. What do you mean? He asked. Leaning closer, she whispered, I'm not the only girl who likes you. With your looks and personality, you're the best guy anyone could ask for. Most girls' boyfriends are just second choices. Wow. I don't know how to respond to that, he admitted. Just take the compliment before I hit you again. And for today. Be mine. Kyoka's heart was set on Izuku. If he was going to save the girls, she preferred it be him. She kissed his collarbone, feeling a mix of emotions but knowing her choice was made. 3 days had passed since then, and now Izuku stood tall. The fabric covering his body stretched, his newly adjusted hero suit and gear tightly affixed to his figure. He had received the new suit as a favor from Mei Hatsum, in exchange for becoming her test subject for future inventions. The skin-tight hero suit had drawn the attention of many in his heroics class, especially from the girls of both Class 1A and 1B. Kyoka's words echoed in his mind. If the girls truly harbored feelings for him, then the stares he received made sense. Many of them glanced in his direction subtly, trying to hide their interest, but Kyoka was the only one who wasn't afraid to stare at him openly. Looking around, he saw her surrounded by her friends. His fist clenched tightly, the bones in his hands creaking under the pressure. He shouldn't care for her, but at one time, he thought she could help him become greater than he was. Now, only frustration filled him regarding her and those around her. Lost in his thoughts, a slender hand tapped him on his left bicep. He looked at Kyoka, who smiled brightly. "Careful, mophead." She pointed, and Izuku glanced at his fist. His full cowl covered his right hand, and black whip leaked from the gaps between his fingers. "Thanks, Jirou," he said, cutting off his quirk with a small smile. Kyoka puffed her cheeks, dissatisfied that he had called her by her last name. They had deemed it necessary to keep their relationship hidden, but she wished they could be more open. "HMPF," she huffed, turning her head and elbowing Izuku. "Class is starting." At that moment, Aizawa strolled into the mock city where they had been waiting. The class turned their attention to the teacher. Clearing his throat, Aizawa spoke in a tired voice, "All right, today is one-on-one mock battles. The winner is decided by knockout, forfeit, or until I deem one person has won. Now line up and draw your opponents." As the class lined up to draw their opponents, Izuku found himself matched against someone he had several reasons to defeat. "DMN. Looks like it's you and me, Midoriya," Kaminari said with a smile, as if nothing were wrong. Izuku returned the smile and moved to enter the small ring that had been created by Cementos beforehand. "Midoriya and Kaminari, get to your positions." Standing at one side of the ring, Izuku watched a nervous Kaminari go to the opposite side. "Hey, Kaminari." Izuku called out. "Yeah." Kaminari tilted his head. "I won't be holding back." Those simple words sank Kaminari's confidence. He and the others knew that Izuku was not only the fastest but probably the strongest among the boys in both first-year classes. "Wait, Kaminari started, but Aizawa interrupted him. "First match, begin." The moment Aizawa's word left his mouth, Kaminari felt it a force that hit his chest like a train, causing him to slip. As he adjusted to the pain, he found himself lying flat on his back, staring at the sky. His left arm throbbed painfully. Trying to move it only intensified the agony. His eyes widened in disbelief as he saw his arm hanging limp at an unnatural angle. Tears sprang to his eyes as he opened his mouth to forfeit. He couldn't scream, his mouth covered in a black substance while he was lifted off the ground. Panicked, he saw Izuku's quirk in full effect, the strain evident as Izuku's body tensed in pain. Izuku's emerald eyes were filled with determination. In a desperate attempt, Kaminari grabbed the tendril, unleashing his quirk. Electricity raced across the black whip, only to fizzle out as the tendrils constricted around his throat, choking him. Izuku wasn't allowing him to forfeit, and with his arm covered, Aizawa couldn't stop the match prematurely. Kaminari felt as if gravity had no effect on him as his body was pulled forward. A knee struck him in the stomach, causing him to hunch over before he was finally allowed to fall. He fought against the urge to vomit, but with the black whip covering his mouth, he was forced to swallow everything that came up. Face down, Kaminari placed his right hand on the ground. Indiscriminate shock, 2,000,000 volts, he yelled, releasing a wave of electricity from his palm that danced toward Izuku. The electricity hit him, burning more than it should have, but he braved the pain, ignoring it as he stomped on Kaminari's hand, shifting the knuckles out of place. Finally letting the black whip loose, Izuku stepped back, smoke wafting off his suit. He could have done more, and he wanted to. What he did now didn't compare to the feelings he had experienced over the past few days. He wanted Kaminari to suffer humiliation so severely that he wouldn't be able to show his face again. However, he knew that everything needed to happen at the right time. He couldn't let the girls see any further, not if he wanted to make this much harder than it already was. As the dust cleared, Aizawa looked at the scene before announcing the winner. Midoriya wins by knockout. Now someone get Kaminari off the floor and to the nurse. Stepping off the ring and heading toward the class, Izuku looked toward the girls and gave a large smile. Despite the recent battle, he looked no worse for wear. Hey, Yaoyorozu. Catching the raven-haired girl's attention, he gave a thumbs up. Good luck, I'll be rooting for you. Ah. Momo stopped moving toward the ring before smiling back. Thank you, Midoriya. Her cheeks tinted with a small blush as she stepped up to the ring. Taking his spot near Kyoka, he heard her snicker. Going after Momo already? It was a playful tease, but there was some truth to her words. Ah, not just yet. Looking over at Kyoka, Izuku met the eyes of Kendo, who quickly turned away from his gaze. I see. Well. Kyoka looked around, ensuring no one could see her, and squeezed Izuku's hand. You'll save her, won't you? Izuku gave a small nod and turned his attention to the match before him. He already knew how he was going to approach Kendo, it was more a question of when he should. Classes had ended for the day after a few more hours, and Izuku was preparing to leave. However, there was one small thing he needed to take care of before he left. Approaching his girlfriend, he forced a smile onto his face. Hey, Ochako. His greeting was met with a brief glance from Uraraka. Hi, Izuku. It was clear she wasn't eager to engage in conversation, but Izuku pressed on. I was thinking it's been a while since we've gone out. How about dinner tonight? Uraraka adjusted her backpack straps and glanced towards Bakugo. Turning back, she smiled apologetically, sorry, Izuku. Bakugo needs help studying, so maybe another time. Ah. Yeah, sure, that's fine. He noticed Bakugo smirking in the corner of his eye, which only reaffirmed his resolve. The excuses from Uraraka seemed endless, so he watched as she skipped over to the ash-blonde boy. Shaking his head, Izuku said goodbye to his female classmates before leaving the room. Once in the hall, he headed toward the 1B classroom. As he approached, he saw students leaving, but his attention was drawn to two people in particular. Kendo walked out of her class alongside her boyfriend, Tetsu. Although they were close together, the emotional distance between them was evident. Kendo spoke with a strained smile, Tetsu, I was thinking. Maybe we could hang out today. I want to go to the gym, but if you'd prefer, we can go eat or something. Even she could sense the growing coldness in their relationship, making her question why she continued to date him. Nah, not today, Itsuka. I'm busy. Another cold dismissal. Kendo sighed, oh, okay. She watched Tetsu walk away, leaving her alone. Adjusting her backpack, her mind wandered. She wondered if another boy she liked would treat her better. Lost in thought, she was suddenly bumped into. Catching herself, she turned around, confused. Who? Oh, sorry, Kendo. Izuku stood there, rubbing the back of his neck apologetically. It's alright, Midoriya. It was unusual for Kendo, normally, Izuku was a little shorter than her, but after the hero training, she noticed he had grown. Now, she had to look up at him, and she could see his muscles were more defined than before. Shaking off her thoughts, she asked, did you hear any of that? Just a little. I didn't mean to eavesdrop. Izuku quickly apologized as they walked toward the exit of the school. No, that's okay. Kendo looked down, holding her backpack straps loosely. As they stepped outside, she hesitated, it's just. Nothing, never mind. Kendo, you don't have to say anything. Honestly, I'm having some trouble myself. Ochako has been distant too. I just wanted to talk to someone who understands. She was surprised to hear this from Izuku. The idea of him having relationship problems was unexpected, but perhaps that was just her bias. It's hard to deal with, isn't it? Yeah. For now, I just want to take my mind off it. I was hoping I could join you at the gym today. Kendo considered his request. It didn't seem out of the ordinary, and having a gym partner would be nice. Sure thing, I was planning on heading there right now. Perfect. Izuku smiled, and for a moment, Kendo felt captivated by his expression. Her cheeks warmed at the sight of his smile. Why am I feeling this way? She thought, trying to suppress her feelings. Do you need time to get your workout gear? Yeah, if that's not a problem. Kendo shook her head, not at all, Midoriya. Let's meet up in an hour. Sounds like a plan. Izuku waved goodbye and hurried to his dorm. Once inside, he quickly changed into a pair of shorts and a tank top, wanting to be comfortable while also showing off his progress. As he slipped on the tank top, there was a knock at his door. Curious, he opened it, only to be surprised by Kyoka, who jumped into his arms. He quickly shut the door and returned her embrace. Kyoka, he asked, pulling away slightly. Don't Kyoka me. She glared at him playfully. You're about to go meet another girl looking like that. She poked his chest, her expression firm. So, excuse me for wanting to hold on. Izuku chuckled, glancing at the clock. You know, I do have some time before I meet up with Kendo. Kyoka smiled mischievously, let's not waste time. Izuku rushed toward the gym, his workout bag slung over his shoulder as the large building came into view. He was able to leave the dorms without much question, as it was common for him to go work out. Approaching the gym, he spotted Kendo waiting near the door. She was dressed similarly to him, but her outfit caught his attention. Now he was among those who could appreciate the sight of a muscular woman. Mirko had always been a crush of his for this reason. Seeing Kendo in such a way left Izuku momentarily speechless. She was attractive in her own right, possessing a charm that was hard to find. Kendo, too, found herself captivated by Izuku. She had always known him to be dedicated to training, but seeing his physique through his tank top left her astonished. Coming from a martial arts family, she was accustomed to various body types, yet Izuku's physique was impressive. His body was sculpted for martial arts, with no excess fat, and everything was toned. A blush crept onto her face as she realized his physique was certainly more impressive than her boyfriend's. When she caught Izuku's gaze, she noticed he was blushing as well, which only deepened her own embarrassment. However, they couldn't spend all day just staring at each other. Midoriya, you're here, she said, breaking the tension in the air. Izuku snapped back to attention, silently cursing himself. Hey, sorry if I made you wait, Kendo. Oh, I didn't wait long. With a smile, Kendo moved toward the door before entering the gym, and Izuku followed her inside. Pretty empty, isn't it? He remarked. Kendo nodded. Yeah, it's always like this right after school. The gym was devoid of students, which was a welcome change for Izuku. Usually, it was crowded with upperclassmen, so he noted to come at this time more often. Well, let's get started with some stretches. After placing his bag down, Izuku began to stretch, glancing at Kendo occasionally. It was a distraction he couldn't help but indulge in. As she moved, her athletic form was accentuated with every motion. Closing his eyes, he held a lunge, his left side facing Kendo, who took the opportunity to admire his physique. Kendo's teal eyes roamed over him, captivated by his toned body. She tried to look away but found it difficult until Izuku spoke up. Like what you see? Her face flushed as she quickly replied, I was just checking to see if you were doing it right. Izuku chuckled, his laughter making Kendo smile and her embarrassment fade. Alright, what's on the agenda today? I was planning on doing legs, if that's okay with you. Izuku patted his legs. No problem. Thus, their workout began. They started with the squat rack, where Kendo, feeling ambitious, loaded the bar with 225 pounds and added another with Izuku as her spotter. She began her sets. Izuku focused on his role, impressed by Kendo's determination. As she completed her sets up by the 18th rep, she began to struggle under the weight. Seeing her knees buckle slightly, he jumped in to assist. He positioned himself behind her, helping her with the weight, and felt a rush of warmth as they worked closely together. Once her set was complete, Kendo took a moment to drink water and wipe her sweat. Izuku prepared for his turn, loading the bar with 4 plates on each side. Midoriya. Kendo stuttered, feeling nervous. Are you sure you can handle that weight? It's been a while, but I'm sure. Besides, he smiled at her, I've got you here, don't I? His innocent comment warmed her heart. As she watched him lower himself into his set, she admired his strength and focus. Sweat dripped down his forehead, and she couldn't help but find the scene captivating. As their workout continued, they switched exercises until they moved on to hip moves. Kendo watched as Izuku pushed the barbell resting on his hips, his body glistening with sweat. It was hard for her not to imagine the weight representing something else entirely. Kendo had long harbored feelings for Izuku, and their interactions, though brief, were meaningful to her. With each passing moment, it felt as though the barriers she had built around her feelings were beginning to crumble. Eventually, they completed their sets, and as they rested, Izuku spoke up. Kendo, I've been trying to figure out how to say this. Kendo, who had been sitting near him, turned to look at him. What is it? I wanted to work out with you because I don't know when I would be able to say this. I found out that Uraraka had been unfaithful to me. Instinctively, Kendo placed a hand on his shoulder, and he responded by placing his hand on top of hers. I'm sorry, Midoriya. But I'm going to assume that wasn't all. It was a fair question. Izuku had little reason to share details about Uraraka's actions. No. I wanted to talk to you because Uraraka cheated on me with Tetsu. As he revealed the truth, Izuku squeezed Kendo's hand. She took the news in without crying or getting angry. Though disheartened, Izuku's comforting gesture helped her keep her emotions in check. A deep sigh escaped her lips. It made sense now, the dismissals, the cold attitude. She shouldn't have been surprised. Izuku, of all people, didn't deserve this, and now she felt some resentment towards Uraraka. I should have known, she murmured. Kendo, there was no way you could have known. Moving to face her, Izuku pulled her into a small hug. You aren't at fault for Tetsu, and I don't blame you. He truly didn't blame her. He even spared her from seeing the video. Listen, I was thinking. He paused, looking at his gym partner. If it's alright with you, I would like to work out with you more, as an outlet. I was wondering if we could become partners. He offered her his hand. Kendo missed the embrace but took Izuku's hand with a smile. Sure thing. It wouldn't hurt, and regardless of what she had been told, she was planning to break up with Tetsu, gaining the perfect reason to do so. Plus, she would get to see a newly single Izuku in workout clothes. All in all, there were no downsides. Shaking hands, the two resumed their workout for another hour before finally calling their session over. Leaving the gym together, Izuku and Kendo made small talk as they headed to their dorms. As they neared the Class 1B dorm, they parted ways. So, how does meeting up tomorrow sound? Kendo paused on the first step to enter her dorm. Sounds like a plan, Izuku replied with a small smile before waving goodbye, which Kendo returned. Watching him walk away, Kendo's smile lingered. Discovering her boyfriend's infidelity was unfortunate, but spending time with Izuku was always enjoyable. Her cheeks flushed as she thought about him and what she had felt during their workout. Smacking her cheeks to clear her head, she headed inside her dorm. Izuku continued until he entered his own room. Passing the common area, he opened his door to a welcome sight. Kyoka lay in his bed, seemingly waiting for him. It seemed his workout wasn't going to end that easily. For days, this routine continued. After school, he met up with Kendo, occasionally flirting with her, and afterward, he spent time with Kyoka to train his stamina. Each day was tiring, but he enjoyed Kendo's company as much as he did Kyoka's, getting to know her in ways he never imagined. He learned about her favorite foods, her enthusiasm for classic cars, and her aspirations of becoming a hero. Kendo, too, had begun to realize her feelings. Each day, she became more aware of Izuku than before. It reached a point where her thoughts of him invaded her nightly activities. If anyone found out, she would be mortified. However, she found herself craving even more. During their usual rest between sets, Kendo sat on the bench, lost in thought. Izuku, dressed in a thin tank top, left little to the imagination. Her mind raced with feelings for him. Every kind act, smile, and teasing remark he made with that charming smirk overwhelmed her. "Hey, Kendo, are you alright?" Izuku asked, standing over her. Blinking, she looked up at him, subconsciously leaning back before nodding. "Why yeah. Good." He smiled again, his white teeth shining as his emerald eyes met hers. She stared back, her usual confident tone faltering. Raised in a martial arts household and often labeled as a big sister, she had always projected an air of experience. Now, after these past few days, she felt like a girl infatuated with the boy in front of her. Midoriya. Do you think you could come by my dorm later tonight? I have something I need to tell you. This made Izuku smile. For days, he had been chipping away at Kendo's confidence. Yet, seeing the genuine feelings in her eyes made his heart sink. He nodded, "I'll be there." Actually, I should ask what time." With a nervous giggle, Kendo took a moment to think. Inviting him was the first step, but it was spontaneous. "I guess any time after 10 p.m. Most of her class would be asleep by then, or so she thought. 10. Yeah, that works. Having confirmed their plans, Kendo realized what she was about to do. Standing up, she grabbed her workout bag, her hands sweaty and face slightly flushed. "Sorry, Midoriya, I have to call it early today. I'll see you later." Izuku watched her run off, blushing. As she left, he sighed heavily. Thanks to Kyoka, he was more aware of gestures and expressions. Shaking his head, he continued his workout, feeling 70% sure that Kendo was going to confess, but beyond that, he had no clue. What have I gotten myself into? Kendo rushed back to her dorm, ignoring everyone around her as she entered her room. Once behind closed doors, she jumped onto her bed, feeling a blush on her face that wouldn't fade. Her mind was racing with thoughts about inviting Izuku over. She had wanted to confess her feelings for some time, but doing it in her room felt overwhelming. What if, she wondered, her thoughts spiraling. She imagined the intensity of their feelings and what might happen if they got carried away. She glanced around her room and then ran to her wardrobe, opening a drawer. Sifting through her clothes, she found a set of lace underwear that she had bought secretly with her friends. Though she had never planned to wear them, the urge was strong now. She also grabbed a plain white shirt and a pair of shorts, tossing them onto her bed. Checking the time, she realized she had hours before Izuku would arrive. Remembering the faint smell of sweat, she decided it was the perfect moment to take a shower. Later, as the sun had set, Izuku arrived at the 1B dorms. He knocked gently on the door, not expecting anyone to answer. If no one did, he would text Kendo. To his surprise, the door opened, revealing a large grin from Setsuna Tokeichi. "Oh, look who it is. It's Mean Green," she exclaimed, floating in with her head and arm detached from her body. "Whatcha doing here? Wait, don't tell me. You came to see little old me, didn't you?" Setsuna had a playful, flirtatious nature that often led to misunderstandings. "Maybe I did," Izuku replied, leaning closer to her, trying to match her playful energy. "Oh Greenie, you don't want this fight," she teased, her head floating closer to his. They shared a moment of intense eye contact before Setsuna burst into laughter. "Geez, I thought I was gonna get you with that." She reattached her head and arm, crossing her arms with a mischievous smile. "So, what business do you have here?" "Kendo asked me to come over. She said she had something to talk about." Setsuna's grin widened as she elbowed him playfully. "Ah, I see how it is. Come on, Tokage, it isn't like that," Izuku said, feigning ignorance as he stepped inside. As they walked up the stairs, Setsuna's tone shifted slightly, and he noticed her gaze darting to the side. "Well then, you better get going," she said, giving him a gentle push. Climbing the wooden stairs, Izuku reached the second floor and looked at the doors, each labeled with the residents' names. He found Kendo's door at the end of the hall and knocked, waiting for a response. After a moment, he heard some shuffling before the door opened. Kendo stood there, her hair styled in a side ponytail as usual. He noticed her outfit, a white shirt that was almost see-through, revealing her dark purple bra underneath. Her face was flushed, and she fidgeted nervously. "Hi," she said, grabbing the hem of her shirt. Her shy demeanor was a stark contrast to her usual confidence. "Hey," he replied with a smile, glancing around her room. "Can I come in?" Without a word, Kendo stepped aside, allowing him to enter. He took in the decor, noting the posters of martial artists and heroes on the walls, along with weights and a punching bag in the corner. "Sorry if the room is messy or not to your liking," Kendo said as she moved past him to sit on her bed, leaning back against the headboard. "Not at all," he assured her, standing near the edge of the bed as she took a deep breath. "So, what did you want to talk about?" Kendo fell silent, her nervousness evident. It was surprising to see her in such a state. She opened her mouth to speak but hesitated, inching closer to him. Izuku took a step back, sensing her struggle. Gathering her courage, she stood up and slowly pulled her shirt over her head, tossing it aside. With a determined look, she leaned forward and kissed him, her hands resting on his chest. To her surprise, Izuku responded, leaning in and holding her waist. They found themselves falling back onto her bed, the soft mattress cushioning their landing. Kendo felt a rush of emotions as they kissed, completely lost in the moment. "I'm going to." Itsuka hesitated for a moment, then surrendered to the moment, pushing back against Izuku. After a brief pause, he pulled away, mindful of his previous mistake. He took a moment to gather himself, feeling the weight of the situation. Itsuka, feeling overwhelmed, rolled over and covered her blushing face with her arm. As she peeked out from beneath her arm, her teal eyes sparkled with a mix of emotions, and Izuku felt a rush of determination. He leaned closer, teasing her gently, and she surrendered to the playful atmosphere. The night was still young, and they both felt the excitement of what was to come.